So what is your problem? Who goes, thank you. Because you have a problem. You all have a problem. You've been complaining about it. You've been ranting to your friends, to your family. You're on Facebook telling all of cyberspace about how you went to the rental car place this morning, had it all lined up for your goalie to get to Myrtle Beach for his summer program, and then they didn't rent him the car after you made sure that everything was all lined up before you got there. And the reason I brought that up is because that's actually what happened to me this morning. So you get on Facebook and you're complaining about it, so what does that do for you? How does that solve your problem? You have friends that come and they complain with you. Or somebody turns into Scarlett O'Hara, right? Tomorrow's another day. The sun will come out, the birds will shine, the sun will shine, the birds will sing, and all of it will go away. But it doesn't. So we have to address this problem. This is one of the ways we can use problem-based learning in a composition classroom. So you want to give them ownership, and what I found is that if you can give them a real audience, something that matters to them, they start to take ownership of all these concepts you've been teaching them. So up to this point, we've learned about the modes of persuasion, ethos, logos, pathos. We've learned about PASTA. You have to consider purpose, audience, speaker, tone, arrangement. They've learned about different aspects of communication, writing arguments, how to persuade someone. And we need some way to make sure that they're getting these concepts, because that's part of our objective, right? Is to ensure that they're actually internalizing all these things and able to use these concepts in their academic and personal writing. So one of the ways that we can give them ownership and make sure that they're meeting objectives is through persuasive communication. So as Cheryl said, you can't line everything out for, you can't tell them step by step this is what you're going to do. But there has to be a box, right? Most people need a box to work inside of. Now, I'm that student that's going to freak out when you tell me you're going to come up with your own problem, something's been bothering you, you're going to bring that into the classroom, you're going to share it, and you're going to figure out how you can get this problem addressed. You're going to come up with a solution. You're going to find the person who can help you enact the solution, and you're going to write to that person, and you're going to convince them to help you solve your problem. And you tell me that's all you're going to tell me, and you're not going to give me step by step, I'm going to freak out. So you're going to have to tell me, I have a box for you to work in, and this is the assignment sheet. This is your box, but you're free to move around inside the box and get the job done. So we do have to give them some idea of where they're going with this. And so on the assignment sheet, it just tells the students, you decide the problem you're going to address. It's your own problem. You have to be able to describe that problem. You have to come up with a logical solution, and here we have critical thinking coming in. You have to find the real person who can affect change. You have to be able to deliver your communication. So how are you going to do that? You have to figure that out. You're going to discuss your problem and solution with classmates in order to get feedback, which you would do in everyday life, right? Call up a friend. Hey, do you think I should say this to Joe Schmo? Would he be offended? You figure out how you can persuade that person. Maybe they're going to say, this is why your solution won't work. They probably will, right? Your solution's not going to work. Well, you have to go in knowing that they're going to say your solution isn't going to work and be able to refute that. So I give them some idea that they need to be able to address all of these things and decide which genre of writing, because we've already covered that too. What is the most appropriate genre to deliver this message? How are you going to get it to this individual who can help you solve your problem? Composing the message, ensuring the message will appeal. How do you grade something like this? Well, there are ways you can have a less concrete instruction sheet and still be able to grade, because any communication, any good communication, has certain components, and that's what they've been learning. So, is it addressed to an actual person who can affect change? If you're writing about marriage laws and you're writing to President Obama, you don't get the 10 points because guess what? Marriage laws are state matters, right? So you're not writing to someone who can affect change. Be deliverable to the person who can affect a change. So some way I have to know. Most of the students will go with a letter. So the recipient's address should be on the letter according to genre requirements. They have to include the clear explanation. So you can see how points can be, this is gradable, right? Communication has to include certain aspects in order for it to be effective, and that's what we've been teaching them throughout this semester. So how do you schedule this? This is a really great project. The students get into it right away. You know, we just start off before day one, really. I put it as day one. I just tell them, go home and think about this problem that you have, that you want to address, and bring it back to me. Let's talk about it in class. They get so excited about being able to sit there and talk about the problem. It's the greatest thing. And then, of course, you walk around and say, this is what I do. Walk around and say, okay, what's your problem? It's great. It's the class I get to get up in people's faces and go, what's your problem? and they tell me, and then we talk about the assignment. They really get into this right away. And one of the things Cheryl brought up is you can't be an overlord in this situation. You got to take the back seat. So it's kind of easy to do that after you group the students. I personally choose to group them instead of allowing them to group themselves, because by then I know their strengths and weaknesses, and I can make sure in each group is someone who has a really good idea of genre, because that first draft is going to come in not looking like a letter, even though they intend for it to, right? And so it'd be nice if there was one person in each group who could say to their classmates, hey, this doesn't really look like a letter, instead of you having to jump in. So a little bit of a schedule that just shows you, there's a lot of grouping, feedbacking, giving of feedback, not creating new words today. So, and they're writing the letter bit by bit, or their communication. I haven't seen anyone do anything besides a letter. And it does fit into problem-based learning because we do anchor all learning activities. They have to apply their previously gained knowledge, you know, such as modes of persuasion and concept and writing genres. They can illustrate that they have gained this knowledge. They are encouraged to develop ownership because they're divided into groups and you take a back seat and you're just monitoring group interaction. Of course you have to walk around and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Because if they're talking about the quarterback, right, and he's not the problem, then you might need to say, hey, did you already discuss, you know, your problem, and give each other feedback? Design an authentic task. Obviously, every person has problems that they need to solve, they need to get addressed, and they need to know how to do that. Certainly every citizen, every mother, every father, every employee, right? Everyone. So it's an authentic task. They're going to need to be able, in life, to have problem-solving skills, to collaborate with each other, to have good written communication skills. Since the instructor takes a back seat and the students are applying acquired knowledge, they turn to peers and reference materials. And that's more realistic, isn't it? You know, once you're an adult and you're outside of the learning community, what do you do when you need help? You turn to your peers, you go look up something in a book. So, give the learner ownership of the process. It's designed to promote critical thinking and problem solving for themselves. They really get into this. It really matters to them. And here's the thing. This is the point where it kicks in. All of this matters. I came into English thinking, I've had 12 years of English. I've been speaking English all my life. I'm going to be an engineer. Why are you making me take English? Well, this is why. Because you may have had English, but you didn't have a class that taught you how to write persuasively, how to make a good argument, right? How to write for different audiences. The learning environment needs to support and challenge the learner's thinking. Well, the learner is challenged to think critically about how to convince someone to do what they want. Isn't that a great skill to have? And is supported through the series of lessons that lead up to this. Also, an aspect that I really like to emphasize, because I deal with a lot of basic writers, is building of confidence. Most of these students come to me and say, I can't write. I don't know how to write. Everybody's told me that I don't know how to write. So we usually have to break through that as part of supporting them. So, encourage testing ideas. Well, during the scheduled sessions where they're giving each other feedback, that's what they're doing. They bring in a script of their, describing the problem, and their cohort is going to tell them, I didn't understand this. What happened, and help them to describe it better. You're going to bring in the draft of their solution. And their classmate's going to say, you know what? It'd be great if UTC could buy a lot more land to make more parking spaces, but that's not realistic. There's not that much land to be bought, right? So you have that encouraging of testing ideas. Provide the opportunity for and reflection on both the content learned and the learning process. Once our writing process is over, because that's what we're really doing. We're working through the writing process through the schedule. The students receive summative feedback from the professor, but also they're encouraged to discuss what they've learned. And a lot of them say, what I learned is writing is powerful. What I learned is I can make a difference with my writing. What I learned is, hey, I'm pretty good at this. And it's really empowering. Furthermore, what they learned is they really do know grammar and mechanics, because what happens is when they realize they're writing to the president and they don't want to sound like an idiot, they come in with really well-written work. And you don't have to tell them, look up semicolon usage. You're not supposed to use semicolons in every sentence for every clause. So here I have an example of a letter that one of my students wrote, and it's fabulous. I changed the name, obviously. I didn't get to teach Marie Curie. But, and I just happened to know Jack Bennett, who is the traffic operation manager, and he was very impressed with this letter. And she starts out, with the nicety. It's you can see it's in the right format. She gives a description of the problem. And I know we probably we don't have time to read through all this. I would love to, because it's just fabulous. When I get these letters, I'm like, yes. There was one day where I actually jumped up and down. She goes into the counter argument. Here's my solution, and here's what you're going to say. Well, students can just leave for class earlier, right? And she says why that wouldn't matter. It's still a dangerous situation. And then she re-clarifies what her solution is, what she wants, and gives the contact information that is required by the genre, and has the salutation, and she signed it for the copy that she turned in. So what I found is that problem-based learning theory is really relevant and helpful. And of all the things that I've done with my students, and I'm willing to try almost anything to get them to succeed, this is what makes them feel empowered. Addressing a real problem for themselves, coming up with that solution, writing to that person that can make change. And we had a change in the Mox box because of one of my students. He just wrote the most fabulous letter about how keeping his money was unethical. Yeah. And so it's been the most wonderful